Hello everyone, I hope you'd had an awesome day by far. Welcome to my session in the Galactic Collaboration Summit 2020. My name is Karolina Kettukari, and today my incredibly, epically awesome session is about how to build your internet with Teams. And I will be sharing some do's and don'ts from a real-life customer case I did last year. So in this session, I will be the galactic queen of Teams user adoption. And my work revolves around making teamwork and internal communication better with the help of Teams and other Office 365 tools. I very much like to be active in LinkedIn and in Twitter, so please feel free to add me as a contact in there. But aside all of these cool labels I have in here, the most important thing for me is that sharing is caring. And I'm super proud and excited to share this customer case story today here with you. So let's start. This was our starting point of our project. And my customer, they had a very traditional, very basic, classic SharePoint internet. It was in the cloud, so it was in Office 365, but it was built with the classic features. And in their internet, the customer, they had news, of course, some RSS media feeds, links to files, links to memos, links to other parts of the internet, and also some links to other web pages as well. So it was a pretty normal and pretty basic SharePoint internet. I'm Finnish, and my customer also was Finnish, so this page is of course encrypted in Finnish as well. So some basic information about the project. The customer in here was Liikenneturva, and that is the Finnish Road Safety Council. They are a fairly small company. They have about 50 employees. But I really think that all of these tips and tricks here today in my presentation are suitable for any company who is thinking about moving their internet from SharePoint to Teams. So the Road Safety Council, they have offices all around Finland, and they do very mobile work, but they didn't actually have any mobile tools to work with. And even though the SharePoint was in the cloud, it was not responsive, so people couldn't really use it with their mobile phones. Also, the company culture was rather traditional, rather hierarchical. And actually, our project started with the premises that we are just going to create just another SharePoint internet, but with modern SharePoint. So wow. But the company, they also had a strong will to utilize the whole cloud environment. And luckily, they also had a very eager and very committed internal owner for the project. So we sat down together and started thinking. So instead of just creating just another SharePoint internet, what if we could cut out the middleman? And in this case, middleman being SharePoint. And what if we could move our internet to Teams instead? So I suggested we could try piloting Teams as an internet platform, and the customer was very willing to test and try it out. Our project was divided in 3 phases. We had planning phase, launch and training, and then of course the evergreen development. We did quite a few Teams pilots, not only the internet pilot, but also teamwork and project pilots. And we interviewed employees on their communication tools, communication methods, and created a vision for the future. So this whole project, it was well planned and not rushed, and it showed positively in the end result. And I have to say that the customer project team, they did a wonderful job in training all of the employees, and they actually had this very extensive face-to-face training tour all around Finland. And then they also offered lots of online support. And they also have this very nice, cool virtual coffee break every Friday. And actually, they had also video connections even before they had Teams. So that was also a great way to share information and ask comments about the new Intranet and Teams as well. So we had an official launch date for the new Intranet, but of course, being in Teams and in the cloud, it's never quite finished. So after the initial launch, the customer has developed the Intranet section in the Teams, for example, by creating a bit more advanced forms and power-ups, and of course, going a bit deeper into having better meetings and teamwork in Teams in general. So the project took about half a year, with the active workload being about 3 months. And this is where we ended up. So Liikenneturva now has their Intranet in Teams. Wow, that's a great stuff. So this is an actual screenshot of their Intranet in Teams. And yes, I know this also is in Finnish. So I have created a demo Intranet for you in Teams in English. So let's go and take a look at the Intranet demo in Teams. Welcome to my demo Intranet. This Intranet is built on the same functionalities than the original customer Intranet. So first of all, we have created an organization-wide team. And we of course want that all of our employees will automatically be part of our Intranet. And that's why it's a good idea to have your Intranet as an organization-wide team. The member limit in one team is 10,000 people, so you can be a pretty big organization and still have an Intranet team where all of your employees will fit. But of course, if you are a large company, you maybe want to consider some things a bit differently compared to what we've done in here. But I think that all of these tips are directly suitable for companies maybe up to 500 employees. So some of the other team settings we might want to go through when we are going to manage team, and here click on the settings. First of all, you of course want to add a picture for your Intranet, because always have a picture for your team. Then it's much easier to distinct from the team list. When we go to member permissions, there are some settings you may want to restrict. For example, we may not want members to be creating channels or creating applications or creating and removing tabs. So we will take away the checkboxes from allowing members to do those kind of things. We can also restrict using team mentions and channel mentions, because those may be a bit of a spam if all of the employees are using lots of those mentions. Instead of mentioning the whole team or the whole channel, we can use the people tags. This is actually a pretty cool thing, and it's pretty new as well. So you can have tags for your people, for example, HR people, or from some project. Roald here is going to North Pole, and Anthony is going to Antarctica. So we can utilize these tags to mention a certain group of people and not using the channel and whole team mentions instead. And when we go to our general channel, so the channel that is the official channel and the first one people always will see, usually the general channel is used for the official news of the company and the official information of the company. So this is the main news section of your Intranet in Teams. And for most cases, it can be a good idea to restrict posting and replying to the general channel, because we want this to be the official information only. So we can do that in a few ways. if we go to our general channel settings, so general channel and manage, we can restrict that anyone can post messages or only owners can post messages to this channel. And of course, when you are posting, you can always choose if everyone can reply or you and the moderators can reply. And now you maybe are asking, what are moderators? So if we go to a normal channel, so not the general channel, but for example, HR in here, and we go to the channel settings, here you can see, you can choose if the channel is being moderated or not, and you can choose who is the moderators. It can be a owner or some member who is just a moderator for this certain channel. Then you can also restrict if members are allowed to reply to channel messages. So a few ways you can restrict how much discussion you want to have with your employees. And that's something you need to decide. How much control you want to have over the channels and over the conversation. Okay, so the general channels was for official information and for official news. The other channels in here are formed based on the company needs. Usually they are maybe sections in your SharePoint intranet, or they can be, for example, metadata in your news. So in this case, we had channels for different offices. We have the Helsinki office in here, and we also have offices in Stockholm and Antarctica. And the offices channels are used, for example, asking who will want to come to have lunch with me on Tuesday, or if something needs to be cleaned or is under renovation. And of course, we can have these channel meetings in here if we are having some virtual coffee breaks every week. Then we have a channel for the management to tell about and discuss about maybe some strategic planning or some other important stuff the management wants to talk with the employees. And this has been really popular in the organization. And actually, we have used similar open discussion forums for the management to share ideas with employees in many other projects as well. Of course, you could use a Yammer group or a whole team in Teams, but here it's just a one channel under our Intranet team. And usually it's a whole new way for people to communicate openly with the management, and this really has worked. It has really been a popular channel in the customer Intranet. Then you can have, for example, social media feeds, RSS feeds, and here I have my Twitter feed. I know it's maybe not so pretty, but I'm super proud of this because this actually is my first flow I did with Power Automate. So with every tweet with a hashtag Galactic Summit or Microsoft Teams, I will see the tweet here in my social media channel. But then maybe the most important section alongside with the official news are the support function channels. So here, for example, we have sales and we have marketing, and then we have HR. So the conversation in our support channels can be more moderated, can be more newsfeed-like, or you can also encourage open discussion and asking questions. For example, ask me anything HR or ask me anything from the IT department. So the post section is of course for the news and conversation. But what about the other sections in your Intranet? You may have noticed that, for example, in the general channel, for the HR channel, we don't have the wiki in here. And my first tip always is when you are creating a new team, always remove the wiki. You don't need the wiki for anything. If you need some place to write, use OneNote. But what about files? Of course, we have lots of files, and I suggest make it somehow official, because the normal files section here in your team, it gets quickly flooded with some random pictures and some random documents. So you want to have an official place for the official documents. And for example, you can make an official folder in here for the documents. Or you can, of course, utilize metadata, because nowadays you also see metadata in your teams. If you want to restrict editing rights, or you want to have a slightly better control over the official files, you can also create a separate SharePoint document library with access rights on its own, and then add that as a tab in your teams. That, of course, means some extra work in managing your files and managing your access rights, but it is a great way to really distinct the official documents from all the other documents you have in your team. If you have forums in your intranet, you can, of course, utilize the forums tool in here as well. So the easy way is just to create a normal form. But if you want to take it a bit further, you can start utilizing approval flows and building power-ups. But here we just have a simple lunch water pizza order form. But then, so here's the big question. We have news, we have conversations, we have files, but what about all the static content in your intranet? What about all the SharePoint pages with text, pictures, and so on? So I have here two easy options you can use. First of all, if you are a very small company and you have a very little static content, you can use OneNote. So here you can see the company-wide OneNote with the same sections than the channels in Teams. And each section has a basic static information the employee needs. For example, here in the HR section, we have information about vacations, absences, benefits, and so on. But this only works if you are a small company, let's say under 100 people and with not that many processes. So what if we want to take this a step forward? So yes, this is SharePoint. So you can utilize TeamSite behind Teams or create a communication site for this, and then set that as a tab in your team. So you can create your static content as pretty modern SharePoint pages. And yeah, we got rid of SharePoint in a way, but in the end, we didn't really get rid of SharePoint entirely. But there is a good reason for this, because adding SharePoint as a tab in your teams is very pretty way to offer some basic instructions and basic content for your employees. Of course, if you also want more official news, you can utilize the SharePoint news functionality in here and then publish the SharePoint news as posts in Teams. And if you really want some extra tip, if you want to take a one step further, you can also pack your SharePoint content to an application and add the SharePoint application to the Teams left-hand side navigation. So then you will have the SharePoint part of your intranet as an app here in your Teams. Okay, and last but not least, this is something I was really proud of. The customer made this well done channel where they give praise. And it's an active use. They use it a lot, and it has really affected positively on the company culture and on the employee experience. It's a simple and easy gesture, but it goes a long way. So here was my Intranet in Teams demo here for you today. I hope you got some new ideas. And now let's get back to my presentation. Okay, so sometimes we are debating if technical tools can change the company culture. And I like to say that Teams is an enabler. The tool itself changes nothing, but it enables a lot. And in this case, the company culture really began to change with the help of Teams. The employees in the company felt that the communication is now faster and more open due to all the conversations in Teams. And also the information flow got better by almost 20%, which is pretty remarkable. And it was great to hear these comments from the customer, because in the beginning they were such a traditional and rather hierarchic organization, but now they feel themselves modern and a digital organization, which is just great. So it's an awesome progress in just 1 year, and all with the help of Teams. So what are the lessons learned from this project? I would say, do be open and do try new things. Your Intranet might not work in Teams with the same kind of structure you've had in SharePoint or the same functionalities you had in SharePoint. But utilize all the different out-of-the-box functionalities Teams has to offer. For example, moderate your channels if needed, utilize all the different tabs, make flows Power Automate, utilize forums, and so on. And the first question the user normally has is that where do I find this certain piece of information or this certain document? So have official places for the official news and documents in your Intranet in Teams as well. And don't train your employees only how to push every button in Teams. Instead, think the situation they are facing. Probably for the first time ever, your employees have a place where they can openly communicate with the whole company. And that is scary. And that takes lots of courage to write a message to, for example, to a HR channel when you know that hundreds of people or maybe even thousands of people are going to see your post. So encourage your employees to be bold and discuss in your new Intranet channels in Teams. Be an example, lead by example, and also utilize the management to give and show example for the employees. And don't forget the mobile experience. So many times when I've asked, what's the best thing in Teams adoption? The employees tell me that it's in the small and simple things. For example, when you can check your meeting agenda on the go, or you can attend to a meeting with your mobile phone, or answer quickly to one chat message while you are queuing for your lunch. So really emphasize the mobile usage of your Intranet as well. And then the don'ts. Teams, as we all know, is heavily developing all the time. But times, they change, and roadmaps, they certainly will change. So don't wait for becoming features, because they might get late, or they might turn up to be totally different than you expected. For example, in this case, the customer, they really waited for private channels. They waited for months. And finally, when the private channels arrived, they actually didn't match the use case the customer had in mind. So the customer couldn't use the private channels for the thing they were thinking of. So always make the best out of the features that are there right now, and don't plan the future depending on some features that maybe will come at some point. I don't know how many of you still think that Teams user adoption is a project, because it is not. It's an evergreen development journey, and it's always, it's nice to have some official launch date and maybe some launch party with cake, because everyone loves cake, but the development should not stop on that. So continue developing your intranet in Teams and taking a good advantage of all the new things it has to offer. And last, but certainly not least, the jump from emails and classic SharePoint to Teams is huge. And I really mean it's huge for most of the normal employees. So train and coach and offer support. And don't let your not so tech-savvy employees to drop out because of your new intranet. Remember that diversity and inclusion applies also to different IT skill levels. And of course, if you really want to get rid of SharePoint, I don't know if there is a need for that, because Teams and SharePoint are better together. Thank you, everyone, for listening to my session today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please reach me out on Twitter if there's anything you'd like to ask. I'm always happy to help. Thank you, and have an awesome day.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.